The terms of a deal between Israel and Hamas for a ceasefire in Gaza are close to agreement. That's according to US President Joe Biden. Negotiators are due to meet again later today in Doha to finalize a plan that would end the war as well as lead to the release of the hostages held in Gaza. Ceasefire talks have been taking place on and off for over a year, and hopes for an agreement have been raised and dashed before. But now there is cautious optimism a breakthrough will happen this time.
There may be positive noises coming out of Washington, but here in Gaza, dozens of people were killed in several Israeli strikes, according to civil rescue workers. The Israeli military said it was looking into the incident and confirmed several of its soldiers were killed in fighting. As the death toll mounts, there is optimism that the diplomatic wheels are turning and a ceasefire may finally be on the horizon. In his last foreign policy speech, US President Joe Biden said a deal was within reach.
On the war between Israel and Hamas, we're on the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition.
The news of a possible deal brought people out onto the streets of Israel. In Tel Aviv, the families of those still being held hostage and some of those who have been killed showed their support for a ceasefire.
I'm hopeful that this time it's going to happen and we're going to see 98 people back home.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, people protested the prospect of a truce.
I came here to protest on behalf of all the families of the hostages who do not want this deal to go through, because they believe that any hostage deal will be detrimental to the ultimate victory in the war.
Biden gave little information on the detail of the latest ceasefire proposal, but he did say it looked similar to his plan announced last year, as he gives one final push before bowing out of the White House for the final time next Monday.
TW's Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber told us why there is skepticism in Washington that a ceasefire will be achieved soon.
We've indeed heard that before, and that is leading many to also be rather skeptic with this news, what President Biden is saying. We have officials acknowledging the progress that both US and Arab mediators have made overnight, brokering a ceasefire and the release of the hostages, but the deal has not been reached yet. An official speaking, of course, on condition of anonymity, said that all sides are closer than ever, but it could still fall apart. So if the sides are really aiming for a deal before the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump on January 20th, they only have a couple of days left for that.
And do we know any more details about this agreement?
So what we know is that the talks are not happening only with the current administration, in this case President Biden's top Middle East advisor Brad McGurk, but also with the envoy of President-elect Trump, Steve Witkoff, who is also talking to the Emir of Qatar, who then is having meetings with Hamas, the delegation of Hamas that is currently in Doha. So there is some hope for an agreement, but looking at it realistically, it's important to remember that the Biden administration, along with Egypt and Qatar, have spent more than a year trying to broker an agreement. So of course it remains to be seen if they succeed now with only a week left of the current administration.